But mama, hello there, everybody. How are you doing? Yeah, I'll tell you what, little Manford Man's band, blinded by the light. Yeah, Joyce, was it you that wrote that you said it was weighted? Isn't that the fact? Mm-mm-mm. You know, I've never gotten a sunburn from darkness. You know, I'm being followed by a moon shadow. I don't even, I may have gotten a moon tan. I'm not sure about that. But again, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It is Thursday somewhere in this reality. I don't know what really is Thursday in reality, but anyway, we go by that. And hey, if we're deceived, then all right, it feels good. But anyway, thank you for tuning in, speaking favor over us all. I do that because it's serious. Even when you're not aware of it, favor's like working in your favor. And nothing missing, nothing broken. If you transcend to the other side, and that is your aura, this favor thing, and then you got the whole nothing broken, nothing missing, it's pretty cool. They'll look at you and say, you know what, you got your poop together. And you can go, yeah, uh-huh. So anyway, welcome all the folks in the chat room. Hello, moderators. Much love to you all. Jackie, how are you? Mr. Floyd, what's up, buddy? Rick, Lori, Mary Wins, how you doing? F. Kitty, good to see you. I think I saw Robert Scott. I'll be getting with you on, brother. Be curious to hear what you have to say for sure. Um, what else is happening? Lots happening. Yesterday was on Writer's Show and really enjoyed that. If you haven't caught that, go over there and check that out. Really insightful and in-depth conversation about, death. Death. It's the thing that surrounds us all, and it's a subject that, well, people think that they know about death, but really we know very little about death. And sometimes, you have to cover topics that, you know, maybe are not the latest fear thing going on, or snapping pictures from the sky, or looking what the crazy politicians are doing, or the rest of the crazy stuff that's out there, and it's out there in abundance. And the thing about it is, every action has uh, a reaction. So there's apparently a lot of reactions about to hit. And I always find it interesting because I don't believe that we're alone in this realm. I have no physical evidence that says that there are other species, but I also have common sense and I can look at things and say, listen, I don't care what you say, the dude's got no clothes on. You can tell me he's got a whole new outfit, but I ain't buying it. And because I think in so much in the conversation with Ryder yesterday, we as a species, we really don't understand this thing. And if there is an afterlife, then that means we basically become invisible. We're of a different matter. And in this realm, we have this veil or cloak of invisibility, which then implies that there are those things that we cannot see that are here and, depending on your particular theology or ideology or belief, influence the physical beings, us. I mean, it's everywhere. Case in point, I want to bring this up because number one, I really don't follow Taylor Swift. I mean, she's a brilliant marketer. I mean, absolutely freaking brilliant. if you ever been where you were doing a startup or a turnaround, the thing that I always looked for, um, I needed a good, finance person, and I needed a damn good marketing person. And I always remember Erica back with US Creative Days. Brilliant, brilliant. We had such a brilliant staff. But anyway, I digress. So I don't really follow her. Um, and listen, if you know how to sell yourself, go for it. I mean, that's what basically everyone does anyway. But I find it interesting as a former Christian and now an individual that sits in here and goes, well, I'm open-minded enough to realize that there is apparently lots of different gods. And I can't be biased in my belief against a person that has a differing belief. I mean, I don't have to be a part of it, but at the same time, go and acknowledge it and go, okay, fine. So I find it interesting how we're the United States, and this is commentary. There's this thing raising up in the United States, and those of you who are outside the United States, you're going to find this interesting. And I don't, it has all the elements of being very explosive. But what's happening is that there is this grassroots movement that, and I don't know how your particular view, but they support Trump particularly, and the title now is Christian nationalist, and you have what is now developing Christian nationalism. Now, the thing about Christian nationalism is that we have seen this before in other countries, and it never works. Because just the foundation of that particular movement, that egregore of thought, says that there is a certain class of people who are above all the rest because they're given allegiance to this invisible person. It's what God is. It's an invisible person. So communing with the invisible people we do it all the time. But anyway, getting back to this has all the elements now of really bringing this into a whole different dimension, because again, the United States was founded on the belief it's not freedom of religion, it's freedom from religion. And our kind who are saying, listen, I got no allegiance to that, They say, well, you have to believe in something or you'll believe in nothing. No, that's not true. I believe in myself. I mean, that's the first evidence I have. So within that, what is within self? Well, you'd be defining that. But getting back to this thing, it's something to watch, folks, because if this thing really catches fire, it's going to be interesting, to say the least. So just prepare yourself, because this is where you start invoking spirits, the invisible people. I mean, isn't that what a demon is? Isn't that a people? Unless you're saying, well, no, humans are people. Well, there's apparently every demon, every angel, every god, every devil, every Satan is a people person. Thinks like a few people, thinks like a human, greed, jealousy, wrath, anger, lust. It's all there. So check this out. So there are players that are in this story that I haven't quite heard of before, but I thought it would be real interesting for this audience just to read this. So the Christians have branded, I guess, Taylor Swift as a Satanist, devil worshiper, and are accusing her of doing live rituals. Now, JD, I know you listen to the program. I'd love to get your input on this. So this article, and I don't know this guy. It's a Christian performer, I think, uh, named Lynch. Anyway, he's one that's making comments here, and I thought this was oh so insightful. Um, he said, "I think when you're looking at a lot of the artists out there, a lot of their stage shows are satanic rituals." Live in front of 20,000 people without them realizing and recognizing. Whoa, just think what's being said here. Now, I don't know this Mr. Lynch, but I would suggest that he ought to do a little study because there ain't no Satan. The only Satan is yourself, sir, because you're doing the accusing. And that is what Satan means, the accuser. But I digress. Gets even stranger. It says the former Boyzone singer added, "You'll see a lot of hoods up and masks on and fire ceremonies." See, now he's associating anything to do with the elementals. Well, that's devil worship. He goes on to say, even down to Taylor Swift, one of the biggest artists in the world, you watch one of her shows and she has 2 or 3 different demonic rituals. Which demon is she conjuring here, sir? You're throwing out some very broad terms here that, what, is this for headlines? But he goes on to say, to do with the pentagrams on the ground and to do with all sorts of stuff on her stage. So you're saying a pentagram then is what, representative what? Beelzebub? No. Baphomet. Well, it's odd that if it's Baphomet, how Baphomet has a direct Christian correlation. But I digress. And he goes on to say, but a lot of people, it's just art and that's how people are seeing it, unfortunately. He says that certain music is a danger to society. You know, you may talk about the authoritarian, the police state, but they're just extreme on the right as well. And he says, because musicians are channeling the devil, capital D, right before everyone's eyes. Well, dear sir, I can tell you back in the day when I was in church and we were in revival, that people would begin to speak in tongues and begin to prophesy. But isn't prophesying a gift of the Holy Spirit, which means, in fact, they're channeling? But let me get this, sir. I guess what you're saying is that your channeling is okay, but if anyone else channels, that's bad. He goes on to say, Lynch also noted that he has personally seen satanic rituals during his time in the music industry that involve praying over albums to ensure they are successful. Well, Mr. Lynch, I can tell you I've seen the very same thing in evangelical Pentecostal filled churches, that they would put their wallet in the center and there was a business, you'd put it in the center and you grab hands and you form a circle and then you begin to pray. You begin to speak over that. So, sir, I am thoroughly confused in your article, and why this was even printed, I don't know, but it's because of the where it was printed from, that this is absolutely ridiculous. Talk about a double standard across the spectrum completely. And, it happens to really suck. I just brought that out because, well, I mean, jeez. What is it? Do as I say, not as I do, right? It is for me and not thee. Wow. Hey, Amber, Don, what's up? Good to see you. Susie Q, hello. Joyce, John, everybody else. Michelle, good to see you, dear. New Oda. Yeah. Norm Girl, what's up? Good to see you as well, Claudette. So, ain't that wild? I mean, and there are people who will read that and they will become like, you know, yeah, 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 devil, devil, devil. And you're going, the very rituals that you accuse others of doing, sir, you do as well. Hmm, I digress again. So, shall we have a spot of tea? I mean, it's so ridiculous. Every church has a sigil on it. But if you see a sigil for the other team, and here's the thing I don't understand is that if the other side says that they have the most powerful God and that, it cannot be overthrown or overcome and can't be defeated, then what the hell's your problem? Let the children play. I mean, if your God is all big and bad and, the whole thing, well, what is his threat? What? You don't like competition? Hmm. Now, in business, what you're talking about then is a crime syndicate, a monopoly. And so you basically want to stay in charge of, the cash, it's very important, but also the whole egregore thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. If your God is all powerful, then it, sometimes people get so wrapped up with this whole Trump syndrome, and I tell people, I said, just quit talking about it. Just stop talking about it. Stop giving it attention, and guess what? It'll go away. Anyway, okay. New one says, or a spot of coffee. Absolutely. Someone says Swift has a lot of followers. She can sway an election. Really? I don't know. Maybe. I find many younger people have a great deal of apathy, and rightfully so. You see people. Listen, there's a point in time when you should step down and let the next generation take over. And quite frankly, if you're 70 or 80 years old, it's let the younger ones come up. I mean, they create a world that is so out of touch with the reality of the real world. Now, I'm not saying that the younger generations will be any smarter, but you know what? It's their world. Allow them to shape it as they want. That's how it should be. And unfortunately, it's not. They get addicted to that power. It's like, oh, yeah. So anyway, that goes with so many things. It's true. I mean, it's true. You know, we've lost the respect for elders. Our society is devoid of that. We have generations that now have no mentors. They have no elders to look to. And the ones that they see, well, they're so converse, so perverse, and so contaminated that there's no connection. I get it. In so many ways, I can still, and that's that 18-year-old in 1973, was living by my own rules, making mistakes, but living by my own rules. And when you begin to realize that you're the creator of your rules, well, then you begin to find sometimes, you know, those run adverse to other people's rules. So there we go. Clever Gypsy, what's up? It is said a salt ring binds demons. I'll try it on the I love this group. I'll tell you, I truly love this group. I mean, and we've got all the ages represented in here. I look at people like Brandon Brand and Ryder and so many others. Chris Matthews, another one. I mean, uh, brilliant minds. They're so much more aware than where my generation was. We were kicking along, but the knowledge that they now possess is it's remarkable. Great hope for those individuals. They will be eventually, hopefully, the mentors and the elders, if we make it that far. And there's no guarantee that we're going to make it that far, but we hope that is the case. So, Grace, what's up? Respect don't exist. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing when you have the great oracle. You don't have to think because the oracle will tell you how to think. And boy, that's a surrendering that is going to impact future generations. That's the biggest problem. You know, it goes without saying. I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have the video games. We had the outside. We had our imagination, and we fine-tune our imaginations. It's what made some of the great writers and great physicists and great philosophers that have come along in the modern time, because we exercised our imagination. We didn't have an outer stimulation that was artificial in nature, basically causing our brain to dump great amounts of dopamine and becoming addicted to it. And that's what basically has happened. And, you know, and see, oh, there's Esley going, I'm trying to see to do things at one time. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I just seen a comment, and yeah, I mean, I was in Texas schools, and corporal punishment, man, it was in full force, boys and girls. I remember Cindy Muse. It's the only girl I've ever seen get swatted, you know, but yeah, saw that. Today they would consider that to be abuse. But you know what it did? It certainly instilled respect. Now, we were allowed to think of anything else, but you also know that if you were an idiot and you crossed that boundary, there were immediate consequences. Ask me how I know. Mr. Foster's office. I remember that. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. Different time, folks. Different times. Back ass words. I love that. Great handle. Always keep an open mind. Anything is possible. It is so true. Susie, why does that not surprise me? She says, I was swatted. Yeah, okay. Moving. This is we'll keep this, you know, completely G-rated across the board. Oh, RF says I was one of the last in Ontario, Canada, to get the strap. Wow, was that a Catholic school? Just curious on that. Yeah. Yeah, it you know, and like I said, um, I had a fifth grade teacher, Miss Buttons. I still remember her. Woman taught me so much. She was the one who told me, she said, Wayne, you're a smart kid. But she said, if you can remember, an ounce of common sense will outdo a pound of book learning any day. She says you'll go far in life. How did I know that she was a prophet? You know, never finished high school, didn't get that opportunity. Circumstances prevented that. But yeah, that single lesson that got instilled in my spirit, that the common sense that I possessed because of just the way that I was being raised at that time, on a farm, a lot of common sense on the farm. Wouldn't you agree, Robert V? I think you would agree with that. Gaia as well. It's just the way it is. You learn common sense. And then that's the one thing lacking in the modern world today. There's so very little common sense. But anyway, well, that we got off on that. It's like, okay. Um, Norm girl, I like that. That ought to be a t-shirt. Make common sense great again. I'll tell you what, I like that. That's one that really works. Robert said, went to Catholic school. I know The Wrath of the Angered Nun. They made a pretty good horror movie too, didn't they? They're called The Nun. Yeah. Guy, that's what I thought. Yeah, you learn a lot of common sense when you're working on that. Yeah. The farm does that. Husbandry, learning to take care. My brother and I, we raised two calves, and from, getting out there early in those god damn cold mornings, feeding them that bottle. Um, but you learn to love them, mucking out the stalls. We had rabbits, and you had to change the hay in there every week out. It taught you a lot about life, taught you about other things. Anyway, had no idea that we were going to go down that road, but it was a nice scenic view, and we shall continue. Yeah, that's true, Mary. Yeah. Coach Gardner had one of those. Who is that? Gary says, my father beat common sense into me. Mine tried to kill me, but that's all right. I guess, you learn something that you learn a lot. Yeah, it's like, that's for sure. Yeah. All right. Got some great um, white papers here to go with that. Uh, wow, Guy, it's snowing over there where you are? Wow. Still feeding and cleaning out stalls. Yeah, you got to do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is the manure always went into the garden, the next spring. Yeah. Remember that rototiller? Well, I think it weighed more than I did, but anyway, I digress. So let's move right on along. So I got some good papers I thought in here. Um, Dealing with what we were talking about yesterday, this one came across my desk, and I thought, isn't this interesting? So there's this whole white paper, this article on communing with the dead online, talking about the chat bots, the grief, and the continuing bonds. And there's a lot of pro and con on this. A lot of on the negative side, they say, well, this is sacrilegious, this is violating, boundaries of, human spirituality. But on the other hand, if you have the ability to have a grief counselor, I mean, medicine is moving to where you won't be ever really seeing your doctor. AI is going to be taking over that. That's the truth. And anyway, so if you have an access, whether it's an artificial program or not, doesn't matter. It has the ability to be grief orientated. And many times with grief is that you work through that dark night of the soul, and really what you're looking for is a sympathetic ear. So it's interesting. And this article goes into dealing with how most likely future generations are going to be dealing with chatbots, bots that will be designed specifically for those type of incidences. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Well, I happen to think that if it allows a person to heal and to be able to move on, I can't see the negativity of that. Imagine now, of course, you have to say, well, it was the program written in an unbiased manner. That's key, number one. Every programmer puts their energy into whatever coding they're doing. Um, so, that would be the one thing that I would look at. But yeah. So we're going to get into a gentleman who has written some really good books on this and articles. This is Byron K. Inleman. And we're going to look at three of his writings here. And it says, Your Natural Afterlife, the non-supernatural alternative to the nothingness. Now, the overview of this paper is of the natural afterlife gives a scientifically plausible, logical, consistent answer to where is heaven, and may change forever how you view death. It summarizes two more comprehensive, in-depth, and scholarly articles, and we both have these: The Theory of a Natural Afterlife, a newfound real possibility of what awaits us at death. An even more profound article, The Theory of Natural Eternal Consciousness, the psychological basis for a natural afterlife. And we have that one as well. So we'll get right into it. It says you're dying, having what will be called your near-death experience should you recover. Within this very intense, even more real than real, dreamlike experiences or dream, you believe you're in heaven. You're overcome by marvelous feelings of wonder, love, contentment, and excited about such a glorious eternity. With death, this is your never-ending experience, or an NEE, and natural afterlife. At least, so posts the theory of a natural afterlife. And I love that. So we sometimes look at the afterlife of death as, as a supernatural occurrence, but what if it is just a continuing process? By that, I mean, we continually evolve through it. Now, if you take the reincarnation factor out of this, then that would suggest that we are progressing in a natural order through many different realms of consciousness in which each could be considered eternity. Your memories are, in essence, eternal. Let's continue. It says, but how is such a natural afterlife based on an NDD possible when presumably any dreamlike experience ends with death and a non-functioning brain? Ironically, it's possible not because some supernatural consciousness continues after death, but because with death, when mortal material-based consciousness ends, you will not perceive or so will never know the following. Now, you've just now died. You'll get no indication like the end or the dark NDE screen. Your near-death experience has ended. You'll never notice that nothing more happens in your near-death experience. You're now timelessly suspended in your NDE, while for others, time is marching on. Is this happening just before or after you've died? You can't tell. Relative to you, death is irrelevant, and your NDE is essentially your natural, let's get back up there, your never-ending experience. It's like watching an extremely exciting movie and not knowing that you've unexpectedly, with no perceived drowsiness, fallen asleep. For you, the movie is paused, while in reality, that for others, it continues on until you wake up and you still believe you're watching that movie. The natural afterlife is hard to grasp, even harder to appreciate. To grasp it, you must be able to imagine what it's like to be never awake, to wake up from a dream, something you've never experienced. You must imagine never knowing that your dreamlike near-death experience has ended, thus forever believing it has not, despite knowing now that it will. And you must imagine an eternity rushing by in what for you is an everlasting yet unknowingly final NDA moment, and thus your never-ending experience. I love this. Great work, Mr. Element. Goes on to say, but more precisely, how can your near-death experience become your NEE? First, given we can perceive time only by perceiving events, i.e., our ever relative time, with death and the resultant end of an NDE events, you enter a timeless state, just like falling asleep and the end of awake events. Second, given we can never perceive such loss of time, it's impossible, imperceptible loss of time. You're unaware that the NDE events have ended and you're dead. You've died. Just like you're unaware that awake events have ended when you've fallen asleep. And finally, given our conscious awareness occurs one discrete present conscious moment at a time, and we can only become aware of something within these moments, i.e., our present moment consciousness. There's a new one. Present moment consciousness. So when I practice meditation, one of the things, no matter what I'm doing, I try to always put myself in the very moment. Interesting. Our present moment consciousness. Nothing will ever change your unawareness that the final present moment of your final NDE event was final, because with the forever timelessness of death, no perceived event will ever provide another present moment. Thus, your final near-death experience moment becomes, in your mind, your forever present moment. It embodies your NDE at a point in time, including the extension of future moments, as does any present moment, and your sense of self, as does any dream. This forever moment, along with the timelessness that ensues, is your timeless NEE and natural afterlife as depicted in the above figure. To appreciate such a timeless afterlife, you must be able to not only envision but value being left at death in a static, dreamlike, yet intensely real-like and emotional state of mind, enjoying an everlasting, ideally heavenly moment, heightened by the anticipation of many such moments to come. For some, this vision must replace the vision of spending an eternity of human-like time in a time-perceiving perfect world. Actually, such a world isn't logical because perfection implies no challenges, no free will, lest decisions be bad, even evil, and thus an eternity of boredom. Surely not perfect. A timeless afterlife, on the other hand, has no such inconsistencies as one can logically experience a relatively forever perfect moment. In reality, an optimal heaven. I freaking love that. Wow. We delve into knowledge. And this, I love the mind that this gentleman had to be in being able to articulate in such a manner of what for so many people is a void, a gap. And imagine if we taught this to our children. Imagine what they would accomplish in life without the fear of this ever moment. It's a great thing about childhood. They don't perceive death as that. So the significance, the natural afterlife differs from the supernatural afterlife or nothingness, that for centuries were considered the only possibilities for what one experiences after death. For example, the natural afterlife wasn't considered by the authors of many best-selling books, each claiming, based on personal near-death experiences, that a supernatural consciousness survives death. Such books as Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander. I've actually met that guy. Nor was it considered by the authors of many scientific articles, each claiming the near-death experiences provide no evidence of an afterlife since they're introduced by the natural physiology of the brain shutting down, i.e. the book, The Death of the Near-Death, Even If Heaven is Real, You Aren't Seeing It, by Kyle Hill, Scientific American. Actually, NDEs, while providing no proof of an afterlife, provide evidence for the natural afterlife, as does the science attempting to explain them. Evidence for the natural afterlife, however, doesn't guarantee that you will have one, that it will be heavenly, or that it's the only one possible. You may not have an NDE, in which case your afterlife may be similar to your before life. Or your NEE may be a perfectly marvelous day on the beach. Did this dude read my mind or what? Which for you may be the ideal heaven? Hey, Brian, love you, brother out there. Milky Way. Or, unfortunately, your NEE may be a hellish nightmare. Up to 15% of NDEs are such by one estimate. Also, your never-ending experience at death could be overridden by a supernatural afterlife at death or something sometime thereafter. The theory of a natural afterlife doesn't preclude this. Wow. And the comparison that I would think that we could all probably relate to is Hellenism. You know, you have a different God and different belief. Fine, that's cool. And if y'all want the PDF, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. It merely defines a new, very plausible afterlife alternative whose possibility can impact on how one views death and thus life, which is the main significance. Conclusion. In a nutshell, your natural afterlife could simply be described as dying while believing you're in heaven or hell, and for all eternity never knowing otherwise. The following features makes this afterlife extraordinary. 1, it's supported by science, i.e., requires no supernatural beliefs. 2, its aspects are logically consistent. 3, it was never part of a discussion before first being identified in a 2013 article. Wow. 4, it's a gift of nature, perhaps from God, resulting from our amazing ability to have dreams and dreamlike NDEs. Perhaps our brain propensity is to induce the NDE, and our psychological nature regarding time perception and conscious awareness. 5, it can be seen as acceptable to both the theist and the atheist, and doesn't preclude a supernatural afterlife if some type of associated consciousness continues or arises sometime after death. 6. Its content is mysteriously produced and personalized either by nature or by a God, as you may choose to believe. The timeless and relativistic aspect of the natural afterlife that makes it difficult to understand and appreciate also makes it difficult to explain. If you found my explanation in this overview inadequate, you can find more explanation with more detail and discussions in 2 additional articles. And guess what? We have those coming up. So, great article. And so his next one on the follow-up on that is, let's go over here. This is his second paper, The Theory of a Natural Eternal Consciousness, the Physiological Basis for a Natural Afterlife by Byron K. Ellman, excuse me. This is in the Journal of Mind and Behavior. I love it. He said, this is the second of my 3 journal articles that are on the basis of my book, A Natural Afterlife Discovered, the newfound psychological reality that awaits us at death. Goes on to talk about the addendums. I want to get right into the paper itself. Allow me to get this a little bit more up here. So he's literally just across, not too far from here, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I might try to reach out. This would be interesting to have. So it's given this article's title, most readers will likely immediately question first how any eternal consciousness and afterlife can be natural versus supernatural, and second, how such phenomenon, if real, could ever be validated. This article explains how a proper frame of reference is key to justifying how the terms eternal and natural are appropriated in describing these phenomena. This frame of reference is that of any other psychological perspective of a dying person, not that of a material perspective of the living. I love that. The theory of a natural eternal consciousness, or what they call the NEC theory for short, exemplifies a theory in which truth is relative to one's frame of reference. Wow. The prime example of such being Einstein's theory of relativity, and it's just a theory. It is also a theory that surprisingly claims that a vestige of our mind can timelessly exist in a psychological frame of reference when there is no longer a body in the material frame of reference. To support this extraordinary claim, the article employs thought experiments to help the reader envision an illusion that occurs when death and makes the out-of-body external existence a reality to the dying person. The article also employs tools that are common to systems and computer science to analyze and formally model all time perceiving and timeless states of mind, and all transitions between them, as well as all conscious moments that are experienced by a person within a lifetime. From this lifetime and eternity model, the NEC, including the natural afterlife, is formally defined, and its reality is proven by logical deduction based on empirical truths, well-established psychological principles, and everyday human experience. The deduction is given in the form of a proof like that required for a logical, mathematical, and computational theorem. Through, admittedly, such theorems are proven based on absolute truths. Now, I know this is pretty deep stuff, a lot of reading, but I don't know about you, but this is how I learn. It's reading articles like this, and it begins to, it shows me that this thread of consciousness that we all seem to be attached to, that there is others thinking it. And I've come to learn in my entrepreneur days when I found that if you had an idea and you didn't move on it, someone else would and did. And even when you move on your idea, you begin to find out that that idea was perceived, received, and conceived by others. It's a matter of who gets there first then. And it's an amazing thing as I sit today, more in the eyes of a philosopher than a technologist, if I had just had this little bit of information, realizing that there is this connection. We call it the ethereal, but it's as real and it's tangible. And all of you have all experienced it. We all have. Wow. To further support the NEC theory, the article makes the case that the theory can be tested. This is possible because the NEC begins before death and merely lingers beyond. The NEC being psychological and death being imperceptible. The psychological principles relevant to the theory are discussed in the next section. Subsequent sections state and explain the theory, formally define the NEC base on the lifetime in eternity model, validate the theory by proof, and by establishing its testability, indicate the vast variation in the NEC experience, and conclude the summation, summarizing the article's claim, contributions, and implications. The implications, while significant for religion and philosophy, are discussed minimally in this article, though the theory's religious neutrality is emphasized. Now, I just want to stop here. We'll pick this up tomorrow. But here's the thing. So the challenge is going to be, if man evolves, and I believe we do, then our thoughts have to be evolved. What we're dealing with today is a 2,000-year-old curse that we call religion. And why man must do that, there's a lot of, eschatology and theology and different things of why we must have a God. I'm appreciative of my existence. I know that there was something that brought me into this form. Now, I don't know if it was me. I mean, if we are truly gods, goddesses, if we truly can create, then what says that we didn't create ourselves? Why does it have to be a God that created us? Oh, well, Wayne, that's just humanism. That's elevating you above God. No, I'm asking a simple question. Do you really fucking believe that there was this God and went like that? Said, all right, Adam, get up there and, starts pissing and shitting everywhere. And he's going, no, 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 no. I mean, do you really think this is what happened? Because that's a distortion. By the way, that was from the Sumerian tablets. The first Adam was a complete idiot, would get to the wall and just keep on hitting his head. The second one could not stop pissing and crapping. Literally is what it says. Then they finally came to us. But let me get back to this whole thing. So why can't it be that I didn't create myself? If I create my reality, then how are you going to argue that I didn't create myself? I knew exactly what the fuck I was doing as you did. Now as a gambler, because we're all entrepreneurs here. Ain't no one got a fucking free ticket all the way through. None of us do, because you have the randombility factor. And that's what makes it exciting for gods and goddesses to get into this. Now, the randombility factor can be both a, positive thing or a real negative thing. So why wouldn't I create my afterlife? Now, if you go in this with a limited perspective that you're going to go into heaven and everything's going to be provided for you, you might want to stop and rethink that. First, you have to define what heaven is. How and what the hell are you going to do? I have no doubt that I will continue as I did in this life. I was a wandering spirit, and I loved it. I was tiptoeing through the tulips, as they would say. But that's just my thought. You have yours. But it would make sense that I did create myself. The essence of who and what I am came from something else. But what I came from creates. So if I came from what creates, then that means I create. Which means that logically, I should begin to be creating my next afterlife. Because it implies naturally that there is this thought after life. Now, I'm going to reach out to this professor because I think I'd love to have a discussion with him, because if we factor in that this is the death realm, and if I come to that reality of understanding that it's not life that's so addictive, it's death. Because death has a certain excitement to it. It has a certain deadline, a finality, a cutoff time, whereas in eternity, it does not. So to experience the death experience would be fucking exciting across the board, no matter how you look at it. Well, those are my thoughts for today. Tell me what you think. Tell me where I'm wrong on this. I mean, do you really think that there's some old white dude with a beard and long, shaggy hair that's sitting there going, I'm going to create you, I'm going to create you, I'm going to create you, I'm going to create you. I ain't creating you. Fuck no. I'm going to create you. I mean, really? As the title was, Communing with the Invisible People. We all technically are already invisible. No one person can truly see the other person. I can't identify your soul. I can't identify your spirit. I can identify your physicality by your words, your thoughts. Spoken, I can't see that. Now, some have the gift of seeing into the afterlife. Bill Donahue, that would be a good one too. Chris, yeah. So anyway, those are just my quiet thoughts for this afternoon. Yeah, I have to do that show, Deep Thoughts. But anyway, tell me what you think about this. Gaia, see, that's it. Yeah, Paul, that's my point. I mean, I really do think about this. And it is passed on, this creative aspect. I mean, when that moment of conception occurs, there's this triad. It's the mother, the father, and no doubt the energy that's going to create, that was giving that creative energy into corporeal form. There we go. So I hope you found that this was fun. Let me know. So hopefully we'll see y'all tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day. Lady Ellie says my brain is an amusement. Yeah, and I don't charge anything. My wife tells me, she said, and she'll tell you the story of how we first met. She said, all I was looking for was a good dinner, good dinner date. And she said, I got this. She said, whoa. Okay, Grace says, I put in my resignation in. I have a beautiful mountain beach and play in spirit. If I'm asked to come back, hell no. That's what I'm talking to you. Goddess Sabina, good to see you, dear. Rick, right back at you. All right, folks, until we meet again on the other side, 23 hours from now, make the most of it. You know, much love to you all, and thank you again.